Hello and welcome once again to this last phase of our special coverage on the 2023 general elections, Decision 2023, right here on the combined service of ASO Radio and ASO Television. Broadcasting live on DSTV channel 392, Star Times channel 127, Free TV channel 507, and UHF channel 38. It's been a long day coming. My name is Adams Momo, and in this session, I've been joined by my colleague, Rosemary Okokutega. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too, Adams. How has it been, the ride?
Well, I've been indoors since morning. You're the one that will tell me how.
Oh, well, I've been to the field and I'm here. I can actually say it's been an interesting day.
All right. And one other person that has crisscrossed the length and breadth of this city is UK Umar.
Good afternoon, viewers, and it's good to finally come back to the cozy studio to, of course, update you on the things we've seen in the field.
All right, and in this session, we're being joined by Dr. Stanley Chinonso Ndukwe. He is a public affairs analyst. Doctor, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adams. It is not just pleasurable, it is quite inspiring having this conversation with you today.
Thank you so much, Doc. So we just kickstart right away, and the man on the hot seat is UK Umar.
Yes, of course, as you might have seen in the earlier reports, we did live from the field with some of the sounds we sent in. I've been around, really. When I say I've been around the town. I started out from Kubwa, and then Gwarimpa, and then I headed to Wuse from zone 4 actually. Then I also went to zone 3, and in all of the places that I visited earlier today, I can tell you that an interaction I also had with the voters and some election observers. And what I also observed with regards to turnout, I was opportune to be around for presidential election in 2019. I can say they are not comparable at all. And also with regards to the conduct of the voters, especially as they come out in the morning to find their names and then of course get accredited and then do the actual voting. The conduct has been superb. And then of course, talking about the level of interest this election has generated, it has actually paid off on the field as seen by the large turnout of voters at the various polling units we visited. Of course, on the side of INEC, there were hitches here and there. Some of the polling units didn't actually open on time, even though the voters were already on ground. But they eventually did, and the process, kick-started in earnest. So generally, then finally, of course, on security, security is not only limited to the presence of men in uniform, but of course, even the conduct of the people who are out there to vote and who are out there to conduct the process. So everybody has a role to play with regards to security. So what I can say on that is there was maximum level of cooperation between the various actors that are present in the various polling units that I visited so far.
Okay, now let's take it from area of the stress voters have to go through locating their polling units, because I'm aware, because I was actually in some polling units before heading to the studio here. The stress in locating your polling units, some persons will come out as early as 7, 8 a.m. and until around 1 p.m. that I left there, they were yet to locate their polling units. Was that the experience in some of the areas you visited?
Yeah, there was actually that experience, particularly in Wuse Zone 4 area. Like in Wuse Zone 4 is a very unique place. In government secondary school Tudunwada alone, you have about 3 different polling units. And then just outside of the gate, you have about other 3 polling units. So there was this laxity, according to INEC officials who I interacted with, that it was as a result of laxity on the part of the voters, that when they did change of voting points, text messages were sent to voters indicating where their new polling unit is, which they should have actually before today, gone to verify in preparation for today. But a lot of people waited until today, and that was what led to them scampering here and there. In fact, a particular young man in that was season 3, he almost got into trouble with the police officers there, because he was insisting that this is where he registered and this is where he must vote. But his name was not there. Eventually, his name was found outside in one of the polling units outside of that location, not too far away from there. So it was just mostly, according to the INEC officials, it was mostly the case of people not doing what they were supposed to do on time and waited till the last minute when the only thing the election expected people to do was just come and then they verify your document, that is your voter's card, to tally with the names they have, not to start telling you where to go as your polling units. That wasn't supposed to be part of the business of the day, because every second counts today.
Okay, now let's look at issue of vote buying.
Yeah. Well, like I said when I got debriefed, live, I said it depends on what we define as vote buying, because it's a term that actually transcends, someone just giving whatever form of inducement to get voters to do as he wishes. Sometimes vote buying could actually happen before the election day proper, and it could also happen during the election day. But largely from the places I visited, I couldn't say authoritatively that anyone was caught in that regard. What actually happened as an incident that I can report here was that somewhere in Wuse Zone 4, a man was caught, a particular party representative was caught with a POS machine, and someone, that's why I talked about security being a collective responsibility. The police people didn't even see it. It was another voter who cited that incident and reported to the police officers at the polling unit. And they called the man aside. After interrogation, he said he was actually supposed to pay the party representatives at the polling units for their feeding allowances and all of that. And the simple question was, why does it have to be at the polling unit? That's not part of the deal. And the machine, the POS machine, was seized by the police officials, and without any further argument, the man actually had to leave that vicinity. So if that qualifies as an attempt to buy votes, that I would say was effectively thwarted by the security officials, but not without the cooperation of the voters who were also present in the location.
Well, like I said this morning, I said vote buying is highly spiritual.
It is really.
And not observe anything.
I'm telling you.
but in the meantime, let's talk about logistics, because that has always been the weak link. Fantastic technology, training and retraining of staff, but the missing link there is the logistics on election day.
Yes. From the places where I visited, and I had the opportunity to interact with a member of the ECOWAS election observation mission in Nigeria. He's actually a senator from Liberia. He was on the station a while ago, and he also corroborated what I observed with regards to INEC's preparedness for this particular election. Well, like you said, very fantastic technology, training and retraining and all of that. INEC has done its own part, but it's always a different ball game when the polls open. There are places, like I said earlier, where in fact accreditation didn't start until well after 11:30 in the morning, something that was supposed to start by 8 a.m. According to INEC, poll was supposed to open by 8 a.m. But if accreditation will start by 11:30 and polls are expected to close by 2:30 p.m., then you will see the variation and what that will cause in terms of differentializing a large number of voters. But that wasn't the predominant case. Because like the INEC chairman said, of course, you can't conduct an election of this magnitude in Nigeria without hitches here and there. But at the end of the day, what is actually the predominant trend is what will determine whether INEC prepared well or not, whether the election was smoothly conducted or not. So from my own observation, and as corroborated by the EU official and the ECOWAS officials that I interviewed, they actually gave INEC thumbs up with regards to providing logistics, and all of that. If there were delays of arrival of materials, that's another ball game altogether. But it wasn't the predominant case in the places that I visited. As far as the 2023 election is concerned? Yes.
Okay, now let me go to Dr. Stanley Chinonso. I want to pick it from logistics angle and the arrival of INEC officials at polling units. Reports from our correspondent in Apo precisely in areas as Apo Mechanic, Legislative Quarters, Apo Resettlement, Kabusa, and Apo Dutse. INEC officials arrived around 12 noon. And as at past 1, she reported that accreditation just begun. So how do we deal with this? Can these people still vote within the hours INEC has prescribed, like ending voting by 2 p.m.? And if they are not able to conclude, what happens to the voters then, those who are not able to vote?
First of all, I will respond by, cautioning INEC, because we have prepared for this eventuality for quite a while. Starting at 12 in some of the polling units is unacceptable. INEC failed in that case. Now, what happens is that a lot of voters are complaining that even the process of accreditation is quite sluggish and slow. This is not because of the technology alone, it's because of the manpower. Most of those who are working with INEC in some of those places we have delays are not as prepared as they should be. This is where INEC has to improve. Now, 2 hours ago, I had Professor Yakubu say that in all these places there are delays, that as soon as they get their accreditation done, that they'll keep on working on the the voting process until they get their votes done. That voters shouldn't be actually angry or complain. For example, in talking about what happened in Imo State today, till 2 o'clock, they still have, most of the polling units don't even have the INEC staff in place. So he responded generally that voters should calm down, that as soon as they get you accredited, you're going to be able to get your votes. And then even if it gets above the time of 2 or 3 p.m., that is going to be able to get it done. So it's the issue there is let the voters calm down, wherever you are, calm down and get yourself relaxed and vote. Since the INEC boss has said that even if you are there after 2, keep calm, the staff will do what they're supposed to do. But my suggestion is INEC should make sure all these votes count. Let the delay, as the boss has said, let it not affect the vote.
All right, I wanted to debrief UK completely before we get to Doctor. Look at all of the issues being thrown, up by UK, who is an eyewitness. UK, what's your as at 2 p.m. I think vote counting started in some polling units.
Yeah.
So can you share your experience with us?
Yes, at Banex here, Banex is part of Wusi, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, there was actually a particular polling unit just after you turn the Banex roundabout and you are heading to the main Banex Plaza. The first polling unit there, they actually finished voting even before 12. They finished voting before 12. That is based on the number of accredited voters that were supposed to be. And big man thing is only a big man thing. You needed to see the sitting arrangement. Some people brought out chairs. So it was like a carnival of sort of big men actually. You see that these are people who...
I hope that's not a polling unit. Because when you're hyping the polling unit...
I was so impressed. I was very impressed. Everything was so I said, I wish every polling unit would be like this. It was so cold. You didn't see any form of anyhowness, as we want to say it. So everything was smoothly done. The INEC officials were there on time. And then sorting was, sorted out as the case was, and people voted before 12. Before I left that particular place to another place, they said they had finished voting, and they were only just, in the process of doing sorting as at 12. And you could just hear that in other places, even as at 12, INEC officials were nowhere to be found. So it's a very huge pot where you have different mixes. But with respect to finishing on time, as INEC said, I'm glad that Dr. mentioned what the INEC boss also mentioned during his briefing, and I understand that another briefing is on the way shortly, which as soon as I leave here, we'll be returning to the Coordination Center to get more briefing across states from the INEC boss. He did mention that, and it's very important to emphasize this very angle, especially for agitated voters who are yet to get accredited and even to vote. There's assurance, and I think this has been a recurrent decimal, so to speak, in our election process, where, of course, INEC officials didn't arrive on time. Of course, they have the opportunity to make sure that whosoever is around get accredited and they get the opportunity to vote before the polls close in such places. So most of the places I visited, I want to believe that they will be able to finish in record time because they are not these large polling units of voting centers, as the case may be. Largely places where most of the people who are supposed to vote there, they get there on time, and it was just a matter of INEC doing its own thing, and especially network allowing, because we're hearing reports of some other places where BVAS machine have been malfunctioning, especially in the peripheral spots of FCT, where of course you will expect weakness of network. And what one can say in order not to just increase the ambers of discontentment that could lead to anything is to continue to tell our voters, other voters, that just be calm, be patient, the process will definitely take care of you. Yeah.
You still have more questions for UK before we let him off the hook.
And I think UK should be back
to the field.
Yes.
All right, so UK, all right, so we're going to go on a break. When we return, UK will be somewhere else and feeding us with information concerning what is happening. But having an overview, what's your score for what you've seen so far?
Like we were saying before,
in a nutshell.
Like we were saying before the cameras came on, it's too early to actually, give any conclusive judgment. Because typically, if you'll be following our election, it's always from around this time to evening that is actually the deciding moment. When people are tired, hungry, and angry, the level of patience that they come with, the level of understanding they bring to the polling units in the morning decreases as the day goes by. So, but generally, from what I have seen, honestly, I can say INEC deserves some thumbs up with respect to preparation and provision of what needed to be provided. What is left is for you, me, her, and every other person to do their own part, because the mistake we always make is to leave everything on the doorsteps of INEC. INEC alone do not conduct peaceful, fair, and credible election. It's what Mr. Adams is doing here, what you are also doing, what everybody is doing, including the people behind the camera. The contributions we are making to this process, at the end of the day, go on because we are here telling people to be patient. That's part of it. Calming frayed nerves and all of that. So, generally speaking, I can say that so far, so good, and we only hope that Nigeria, becomes the winner at the end of the day.
So we're going to have to leave it at that. UK, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
We'll go on a break. When we return, Decision 2023 continues.
Yiaga Africa is a trusted partner with Facebook and Meta. And as a trusted partner, what we do is we report cases of fake news as well as hate speech and call on Facebook to take down those kinds of platforms or harmful content online. But Yiaga Africa also works on data and technology. So we counter fake news because it's part of our responsibility to counter fake news and disinformation in the build-up to the elections, because fake news or even hate speech can undermine the credibility of elections in a lot of ways. First, they try to swing, voter behavior or influence the way voters cast their vote by propagating fake news. And when it is fake, it means it's untrue. And so that impacts on electoral credibility. And fake news can also be used to cause political instability and heighten tension in society, especially when you have fake results, fake information. It can also even mislead voters on the day of election or even before elections. And as part of our duty at Yiaga Africa is to counter these forms of fake news and also report, platforms and individuals who are involved in propagating all forms of fake or hate speech online. There's been an exponential growth in the volume of fake news being propagated online and even offline. And the reason why there's this exponential growth is there are also additional platforms. So like TikTok is one platform, being used in this election that wasn't used in the last election for propagating all forms of fake news and hate speech. And political parties and actors have relied on these platforms as a campaign strategy. If you look at the amount of bot accounts on whether Twitter or other platforms, it's also increased. And just recently, Twitter took down some bot accounts. And these bot accounts try to make issues trend online, just to give a sense that a particular issue, a particular individual is enjoying some popular support. But if you check the handles of most of the candidates involved in this election, within a short period of time, some of them have had over 1 million followers or hundreds of thousands of followers. And you can just clearly see that they are mainly bot accounts, which are just used to create the impression that they are gaining popular support online. So these are some of the issues that we're grappling with. And we've also seen how traditional media platforms take fake news from social media platforms and then bring them to traditional media, and that has created a lot of confusion in the space. And recently that happened where a fake information was put online, and then a particular TV station took the information, and that ended up, creating confusion, and it landed them in trouble, and they were fined, by the regulatory agency, and there was also threat of litigation against the media institution. And so the best response to this is we have to be circumspect and careful with the kind of information that we consume from social media platforms. And the antidote is to verify, and verify. Once you receive an information, the first question you should check is what's the source of the information. So first, identify trusted sources of information and news. Note the web links, note the addresses and the platforms, because purveyors of fake news and misinformation often do what? They clone this accounts and these links and make them seem real, but they're actually not real. So you have to be circumspect. That's why we say shine your eyes before you consume any information or share any information. The second thing is you have to verify information. Sometimes when you see information there, you can clearly see that they are untrue. And so you have to exercise your own intuitive abilities. You activate your intuitive abilities, but also ask questions. There are platforms for verifying fake news and information, and there are institutions that are involved in fact-checking. So they fact-check and they share those information. So it's also important that you also know these platforms and try to do what? To fact-check the information. There are some things like breaking news that you see, and sometimes they are not actually authentic news. They are shared by some very fake platforms that have been flagged by different regulatory sort of platforms that they are fake. When you see breaking news, just wait first. Do not be in a haste to want to break information. Just chill and see if that same information has been reported by another media house or by another institution. And once you get an information claiming to come from a particular institution or particular person, go to their social media platform to check if they actually posted the information. And this is why you have verified handles on different social media platforms, so you know that this information is coming from the credible and authentic source. The last, I would say, be careful the kind of information that you share, either on WhatsApp or as text messages, where you keep forwarding messages you get from a particular group or from a particular WhatsApp account. Don't always be in a haste to forward messages to multiple people. Always verify the information before you share. People want to win elections at all costs, and so they appropriate every kind of tools just because they want to secure political power. So that's one. Two, they are just mischief makers who are just not interested in the peace and stability of our country, and they would go to any length to cause chaos or confusion, because when there's chaos, when there's instability, they are top beneficiaries. So that could also account for some of the reasons. The third one is just ignorance. And people don't know the fact that fake news is actually a menace within our society, and you can tell that the way people actually buy and subscribe and really trust, some fake media platforms, despite they being flagged as fake. And it just tells you that we need more public orientation, more public sensitization on how to identify fake news, on the platforms they can verify information, but also how they can report where there is fake news or hate speech propagated by any individual. That the elections cannot be successful if you don't show up to vote. Not voting, sitting at home, will not do Nigeria well. Nigeria is in a very critical moment, so please come out, cast your vote, believe that your vote will count. But when you vote at the elections, we urge you to stay back if the place is safe, to watch the process, because your vigilance is what will make the elections and your votes count. And I want to also urge, political parties and their actors to play by the rules. Clearly, most of them are not interested in fair competition or credible elections. And it's very sad that
tuned to the special program on the 2023 general election, the all-important election for some scholars or observers, or should I say, a lot of people have said that it is one of the most important elections Nigeria will ever have in history, and Nigerians are actually looking out for a new Nigeria after the whole process. Good to have you join us on this third session of the program. We are still live in the studio with our public affairs analyst, Dr. Stanley Chinonso Ndukwe. Is going to be doing justice to a lot of questions that have been raised by our correspondent, Usman Katun Umar, who was here earlier telling us what went wrong or right at various polling units where he has visited. So thank you for staying by.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I want to go back to one area which UK raised, which is the fact that some parts of Wuse election, the voting has been done with, and sorting or counting of ballots begun in earnest. Now you could say that is a good process, a smooth and smart one, fast one, let me just use the word. My question is it possible to deploy this same team to a place where maybe voting is even yet to start, or they are struggling to get? What's the possibility?
No, it's
to make this system easier? Is it possible?
It's not possible, because INEC has given some people roles. They have their roles. After the process, they have a lot of work to do in making sure that all the votes are accounted for. All the systems are being verified for. They can't do that and go to a different polling unit. That's why every polling unit has people that are assigned to those units, who are specified in those units. And the issue of distance is also very, very important. Someone in Wuse cannot be sent to a place like, for example, Barimpa or Maraba to start afresh again. They have to go and report at the INEC office, stay with what they have collected, make sure it's being actually put at the right place at the central system. Okay, now
this now takes me back to your explanation earlier on what the chairman of the electoral umpire has said concerning areas where voting did not start early, urging voters to be calm and all of that. Does that mean that we can have voting into the night, or can it a spillover?
It's usual, it's normal. It happened in Osun State. People voted quiet for a longer period. It is done in most of our elections. It has been the tradition. The challenge we are looking at here is the issue of the BVAS technology, which universally has been known to be problematic. given that the technology is still nascent. So there are a lot of issues that are, surrounding the issue of its efficacy. Because, for example, in Osun State, you remember what happened? That 700 polling units had issues with their beavers. Beavers could not stop overvoting. It's a challenge. So the issue here is INEC has a long role to play in making sure that every beaver stake in every polling unit is absolutely calibrated to work effectively. It must be done.
Okay.
All right.
You're itching to say?
Yes, I'm itching to say something. I'm a student of technology.
Yes.
And as a student of technology, I can tell you that there's nothing wrong with the beavers. Before any technology is passed, it goes through a lot of quality control check and process. It's practically impossible to see a machine that has been passed through the factory that will be faulty. Once in a while you find malfunctioning of, but there is always a big question mark on that manufacturer. And so internationally, based on international best practice, nobody who manufactures a machine and equipment will pass it without passing through the quality control check. That is a big minus on that individual. And a lot of the manufacturers have international standard organization certification and all of that. So it's a huge process, especially for something that determines, the integrity of election. It is not a common machine you buy on the roadside. Even for the common Android phone, it passes through a quality control check. So it is not easy when you've met manufacturers, you've spoken to manufacturers, and they tell you what it takes for even a toy to go through quality control check. So what is the problem for us who are students of technology? When we talk about technology acquisition, there is a problem with technology acquisition. That is where you have people who do not have. You remember when the card readers came out? You remember that at the time they would tell you the card readers are not functioning 2-3 hours. At the end, someone, by the time we got to the next election, somebody just said, use methylated spirit. And that was it. That was it. Because we are, where these things were manufactured, usually there are challenges that you never could envisage until you apply them here. And even when you apply them on a small scale, you will not be able to detect these problems until you apply them on a large scale. And so you realize that most of the problem that you find with these beavers now, for me, I will tell you, as a student of technology, these are all of the training we've gone through, including technology acquisition, how to run parallel switchover, not automatic switchover, to avoid all of these problems. You realize that these issues are basically because of people who do not have a hang on these things. Don't forget that a lot of the staff used by INEC are ad hoc staff. Even after you have trained a particular set of people, before election day, somebody will tell you, my mommy said I shouldn't go because of the risk. And so you have to start training. I'll tell you about logistics. It's not an easy thing, being an election management body for INEC. Before that day, it's the same problem we have with the transporters. On that day, the transporter may not show up. You have paid him 70% of the money, or 50% as the case may be. He tells you that his car is faulty, or his wife put to bed last night. So you have to, at every inch of the way, be on top of your game to have a plan B and a plan C. So if you look at these beavers, I can tell you confidently that the problem will not be associated with the machine itself, but the fact that every time you acquire a new technology, it takes time for you to have a hang on the technology. Like I said in the morning, when I bought my first phone, I spent 4 months without knowing it has an SMS functionality. And someone visited me in my house and said, all the text messages I've been sending to you, I said, what is text message? The person will come and see hundreds of text messages for just a phone. So you have that thing. When you buy your first car, it's the same thing. It stops on the way. You come out and what is happening? I knew of someone who bought a car, she was driving, it was automatic. And she forgot it was on the gear once she switched it off. To start it, you cannot start the car. So a mechanic came and charged her money to fix that problem. After she paid, she did some things and move it and put it at the park and then started, and the car started. So all of these issues happen, but you understand, they happen. We need to be able to isolate, problems that have to do with equipment malfunctioning itself. And I can assure you, for this kind of election, for an equipment as important as the beavers, you're going to find operational problem. Mostly operational problem.
Actually, because
rather than rather than malfunctioning of the machine itself.
I was actually going to pick on that when he said the machines are known to be problematic from inception all over the world and all of that. And I was thinking, is it not something that, okay, you know this particular machine or this thing has this issue, as a body who is planning for an all-important event like this, are you not supposed to take measures? But from Ms. Adams' explanation, it could be an application problem,
I think,
or operational problem.
I think he's conjecturing. Now, because you see, human factor is crucial in technology. The issue of human factor is that there is what we call human factor error. No matter how big, how good, how wonderful a scientist is, the people that developed and built beavers, there are certain aspects of the tech that could develop issues. For example, in Rivers State today, the governor and his wife were not able to get accredited. In fact, after like 30 minutes, he had to leave, said he's going to come back an hour or two to come back and do it. Others were, when he came to him, he was not able to get accredited. Now, the issue is, sometimes it could be the managers, the INEC ad hoc staff, like you suggested. But sometimes also, the technology could have issues. Because a lot of people have suggested that due to the growth of hacking technology, people can hack into beavers. There's a possibility of this. So these are areas INEC should also look at how to build their defense. Make sure there is a plan B. 2 or 3 extra beavers tech
available, or possibly somebody, a technician, somebody who can actually touch a button and easily fix it. Among the staff.
All of those people are available within the polling units. Where you have a polling center, within that polling center, there is always a technician who is available. Where he goes round, because you can't afford one technician per polling unit. That person is there. There is what we call efficiency of a machine. And in technology, we'll tell you that no machine is 100% efficient. Because the human beings who manufacture that machine can never be 100% efficient. So there's a human error. But we look at all of that efficiency of that machine, which, we talk about the input ratio all over the output ratio. We're going technical.
Yes.
So at the end of it all, we calculate the efficiency of the machine. And I'll tell you, when we did a course known as equipment reliability, we were told that even for airplanes that have 4 engines, they still malfunction and they still crash. They do. Now, each of the engine of an airplane can fly you safely to your destination. With all of that safety measure put in place, in terms of efficiency and reliability, the airplane still crashes. So what that means is that no machine can be 100% efficient. So taking that into account, we know that there is absolutely no way that the technology cannot malfunction. However, we look at the scale of the malfunctioning of it. And I can assure you that the greater percentage, because when you look at beavers, technically what is beavers? It's just a contraption of a facial identification technology and a fingerprint recognition technology. There's no big deal about it. It's just big English.
Biometric.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's just about your facial identification technology and your fingerprint identification. Put it together. Initially, we have just a card reader, which is just your fingerprints, which is your biometrics, talking about your biometrics. And now we added the face to it. So it's just a facial identification technology. So technically, you understand, it is even when the facial identification technology refuses to function, the fingerprints part of it, the B part of the machine should function. So it is difficult based on the functionality of that equipment. It's extremely difficult for both the A part and the B part of that device to fail at the same time. So you realize that a lot has to be done in looking at the challenge that INEC faces. Can we have more, a contract with staff who are more, which is more, they are tech savvy. It's a gadget for the new generation. Most of the millennials can handle this thing. It's not a big deal for them. But can we have an arrangement where, someone who, for example, was available during the 2019 election can also be around I'm talking about work on experience. Yes. So people that have a longer, experience. Is there now? Look at the NYC. It's just a 1 year.
Yeah, that's I was going to go
So
there.
the next year we are going to get a new set of young people again who are going to constitute largely the ad hoc staff. So this on and off of new people who are going to be trained again, who are going to go through the entire hurdle, is a major problem. Until we isolate that particular problem, we cannot really say that this machine, it's the cause of the problem. It's like they say a bad workman always quarrels with his tools.
Okay, now we'll come back more on the functionality of the BVAS machines and how they can actually enhance the voting process for those areas that are yet to have up to 50% voting. I've been told that one of our correspondents from the field is available to speak with us on the progress at the moment.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Olina.
Yes, this is Olina, giving a situational report. I just left the studio now
going over there?
with a report of an emergency polling unit just beside my house. Coming back home now, the situation is chaotic as an individual actually came to disrupt the process, and he was bulldozed into conforming with the electoral process. Voting has since ended, and the electoral officers are counting the ballot as at this moment. And the situation is calm now because the person that almost caused the problem has been whisked away by the security officials who promptly swung into action to calm the situation.
Okay, thank you, Olina.
Did she say an emergency polling unit?
Yes.
Did you read that statement?
Yes, it was an emergency polling unit because I just woke up this morning and I gave a report. I just woke up this morning to see the spot and people queuing up to actually vote, cast their ballots.
Hello, Olina, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
We need some kind of clarifications from your earlier statement. You did mention that it's an emergency polling unit. Are you saying there's an emergency situation over there?
The Independent Electoral Commission actually announced more polling units in some areas. So this is one of the new polling units.
So it's a new polling unit.
From this area. That's why I refer to it as an emergency polling unit.
Okay, can you speak a little louder? Can you be more audible rather? Can you be a bit audible?
No.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hello, Olina.
Yes.
Can you hear us clearly from there?
Yes, I can hear you clearly.
We want some clarifications. Is it that you said there is an emergency situation over there, or is an emergency polling unit? What exactly is the situation?
Someone came in to actually disrupt the protest.
Someone came in with what? To do what?
He actually came in without an ID card, without any area of identification to disrupt the process. But due to the intervention of the security, in fact, it was almost turning into a chaotic situation with skirmishes.
Okay. But it's been handled.
It has been handled. And
all right, thank you so much for your update.
The counting process is in progress.
Hello, Helena, that should be Kagini area.
Yes, this is, yes.
Okay, thank you so much.
So vote counting is underway in Gwari. There's vote counting going on in Gwarimpa. There's vote counting going on. If we can have the clips of the vote counting, so we get to know what is
some part of Wuse as well.
Okay, so let's see if we can see the visuals of the vote counting that is ongoing, and get to know that we've made a lot of progress. So we're expecting to see the
maybe let's take that of Buhari. I think there is sorting of ballots in Buhari. If you can have that, Director.
Okay, so while that is...
While we wait for that, I think there is something... okay, let's have this first.
You know, as witnesses to what is going on. So that is it. So
And there's actually a particular take home from all of these areas, from the places I personally visited and from the updates from Usman. I think there's been this great level of calmness or orderliness among electorates. Everybody has been orderly wanting to vote and all of that. You see no disagreements, and
Yes.
I think Nigerians are actually ready for
The maturity is...
the maturity. I think that's the word.
It's getting glaring because on my way to the studio, I had a couple of security officials who were driving before me, and they made, I have seen that there is the development and there is a kind of growth in our level of participation in the election. You see the queues. I saw a couple of queues. I passed over 8 different polling stations. People are getting involved in election. It's a very good news.
And that to me is a growth of democracy.
Of course. Election is
So
something
Mr.
that...
Adams.
Dr. Stanley will tell you that, Dr. Stanley Chinyomsu will tell you that, what is your sample size?
Yes.
When you do research in social science.
Of course.
So what is your sample size before you conclude a Nigerian answer? That's what you tell you.
Yeah.
So we have to look at your sample size. Abuja by the official figure has about 4 million people. Official figure. So we have about 4 million people. If you need to look at the sample size, you'll be looking at the sample size of between maybe 400 and 500, right?
Of course.
So if you haven't observed that number of polling units or population, you shouldn't say so.
I'm abstracting.
Yes.
I'm not making a conclusive statement. I'm only saying that what I have seen so far, there is an element that we are moving from the brink, getting close to where we understand that if you vote your leader, you benefit from it in the end.
Yes, Abuja is an elitist society,
It is.
you know, and the biggest problem to democracy is the uneducated. As a matter of fact, it is argued that democracy is not for the uneducated, because the uneducated doesn't understand the value of democracy. The uneducated is willing to sell his birthright, for example, in what we call vote buying. The educated, when I say educated, I don't mean the people who went to school.
No.
Going to school does not mean you're educated.
At all.
To be educated means that you are exposed, you've read widely, you understand the essence, you understand purpose, and you understand the value of, you can place value to simple things, around you. Beyond money. So the democracies argue that it is not for the uneducated. The uneducated makes democracy complicated, because all of the elements of good governance that you find in democracy, accountability, transparency, inclusion, equity, the rule of law, all of those things, the uneducated don't allow it to succeed in the democracy. They don't even understand that you have the right to your opinion. You have the right to decision, to your choice. They don't understand. The uneducated does not understand fundamental human right that people have. They try to impose their own wish and will upon other people. So you choke democracy when you have 70% illiterate. It becomes a problem. There is absolutely nothing we can do as a people to foster democracy until the out-of-school people, until the uneducated, people who don't have access to education, until we eliminate that. The more we reduce the number of people who are not educated in our society, the more our democracy will become seamless. So what you find in a place like Abuja is a reflection of the kind of city that we have. These are educated people, civil servants. These are people who, when you graduate from school, the first thing you think about is to go to either Abuja or Lagos. So you have more of these people here. And I'm sure all of the places you've been to are those kind of people that you've observed. But where we're going to have a lot of problems at the end of the day is those people who do not understand, who are uneducated. They are crude. Like we've seen some of the reports coming from across the country. They do not even understand, like I said in the morning, some people do not even understand the difference between analog and digital. They do not even know that you can no longer run with the ballot box. They are still
it's needless.
in their mind. They are still thinking they can run away with the ballot box. So all of this you are going to see at the end of it.
Good enough is only in their mind. They are thinking.
At the end of the day.
Back to what you said.
Yes.
Aristotle, who critiqued liberal democracy, made a mention of what you just said a little bit. But in his critique, he tried to argue that the rich, who are absolutely the aristocrats, who introduce the money democracy, they also make it hard for the poor to understand and participate in democracy. Because, for example, how many poor people can be able to go to become a senator? How many of them can participate? Because the rich make it very, very expensive for you to even profile and market yourself. For you to even get educated, school is very, very expensive.
I think I definitely will get there, but I want us to we'll get there. We are going into participation in terms of vying for position and all of that.
Yes.
We'll get into all of that. But if you ask me, looking back at, should I go far as 2015 or 2019, isn't there been a level of difference between the, in Adams's voice, the illiteracy display and now?
There's a paradigm shift.
Yes. Well, there is a paradigm shift. Don't forget that we have a lot of the millennials on the social media, and that social media has created a lot of consciousness in terms of governance generally. So whether you're educated or not, I'm using educated in the sense that you are exposed. You understand? Whether you're educated or not, you are able to understand from a lot of the influencers that we have on social media, the value of why you should vote for the right candidate. So with the millennials, we have what is called the influencers, who now tell them, look, if you do this, they open their eyes to a lot of things. And if you look at our democracy, you see the participation of a lot of influencers. They might be partisan, which is okay in a multi-party democracy.
Definitely.
But the fact is that they are helping in sensitizing other people. So through skits and other medium, you are beginning to see information being passed to people who before now might not even be interested in who governs them and all of that. So there's a consciousness, there's a consciousness.
I call it political enlightenment.
Enlightenment. That is the only way.
Today.
But then we need to understand. But you see, like I said, the educated knows that you cannot you can't buy my vote, for example, for 20,000 naira. If you buy my vote for 20,000 naira, as someone who's educated, I divide 20,000 naira times 4 years. I'm going to end up having 5,000 naira per annum. I'd rather starve and die than to create 5,000. So if you 5,000 per annum, I want to divide it by 365 days. And how much
can you even get to a cup of garri these days?
And remember,
5,000 naira 365 days. You know how much I mean?
that division has.
So I wouldn't accept it, even if I'm hungry. I'd rather die.
20,000 in the next 1 month or 2 months, it reduces in value. So even that 5,000 you have divided is not even up to that.
It's not even up to that amount.
So I'd rather starve than for you to insult me.
You know what? This actually brought me to a skit I watched earlier this morning. It's about vote buying. And this big man, a politician, so to say, stopped a street guy trying to buy the vote. And the guy said, I'm selling my vote for 200 million naira. And the politician shouted, what for? He said, you mean I should sell my vote and remain in Nigeria? If I sell, I should be in another country. It's a level of enlightenment and all of that. Let me quickly go back to some of the issues we have here again. An update earlier from the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission.
Okay, just before we go there, please, can we take our Holina, I believe.
Okay, Holina is still
back
on.
again.
Okay, Queen.
Oh, Madam Queen. Okay.
Okay, Queen, can you tell us from Is Queen still available? Okay, we go back to Queen. I think we are trying to still get the contact more audible. So let me go back to some of the issues. An earlier briefing by the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission brought up some issues, security issues actually, and that to me is a worry. That that's about some hours ago, he did say that bandits attacked an launched an attack on some polling units in Alawa in Shiroro local government area of Niger State, and similarly they attack other areas in the country, other states too, but at the Shiroro they were able to make away with 6 beavers. But according to him, with the help of security officials, the INEC team was able to recover at least 3. It means they were able to go away with 3 others. And then in Delta, 2 beavers were taken, the same today. And which other states also had that issue too. So how do we handle this? In this area that these beavers are not available, what is their fate?
Their fate is I think INEC can respond in 2 ways. First of all, the reason why they took the beavers, there are 2 things they want to do. They want to disenfranchise that location. There must be a kingpin, either a political force, that is interested in the crowd of a particular opponent in that location. They want to get them disenfranchised. Number 2, they want to manipulate the result that will come up in the end. Because beavers is a technology that can also be rebuilt. It can be recracked, like I said earlier. Now, their fate now is INEC has to respond by making sure there should be a new beavers for all those polling units that had this issue. And it should be done within the hour. There should be quick response. Because the law makes it clear that today is the election day. There shouldn't be like any shift. So INEC must do everything within their powers to get those people that they want to disenfranchise, get them have the opportunity to vote. Either getting them to new polling units or getting new technology for them to be able to get themselves, get their vote, casted. So it's important INEC responds in these 2 ways: get them new beavers, and also make sure that the place is secured, because such attack can also repeat itself if they still want to go ahead and disrupt all those polling units.
For me, I think talking about the technology itself,
yes.
The beavers is programmed to
yes.
work within a particular space on a particular day. So it's programmed to work on a day like today, 25th. If you take that same beavers tomorrow, it will not function. It's programmed to work today. You need to reprogram it. You need to recalibrate it, which is one thing that INEC has done in looking at trying to put so much integrity in the process. For me, whether you cut away the entire beavers is not an issue. The major issue there is the issue of security, which is not adequate. So, and there is a provision in the law for this election to be rescheduled. So usually at the first phase of this process, it's so difficult. Today we read out about 176,000, polling units or thereabout that this election will take place. By the time you calculate all of those, you realize that it is not an easy thing to carry out this election process and don't have some of these reports from certain areas. It's not possible. If you're an event planner, ordinary wedding, you know what you went through.
Yes.
Things didn't go right. Just to put an event together. So a lot of these issues happen. So the fact that we can reschedule this election means that we can come back to these areas where there's been restiveness, and we can have all of the security personnel distributed across Nigeria. Half of them can be moved to those areas.
Okay, in these particular areas, the election should be scheduled there.
Yes, there's nothing else you can do. You've cutted away the beavers. The beavers was configured for a particular polling unit for a particular day at a particular time. And you've taken it away. Of course, there's always going to be a backup, but even that backup, before it is brought there, when you have 3 beavers, for me, I think if you cut away things like that for a day like this, you leave it. We have enough stress for the day. We can always come back, reschedule that particular election, right, and have it.
Yeah, this is the issue of the law talks about substantial reasons why an election could be cancelled or rescheduled. Now the issue is if they disfranchise those people now, and there's another opportunity for them to do the election voting again, there is a problem of integrity. When we have such pockets of challenges and we don't respond immediately, the issue of vote buying, the issue of manipulating that election is easier when we have pockets of polling units to be able to conduct an election. And in most cases, from what we have seen, they don't even consider most of these polling units when after the election.
have seen a rescheduling, even in the capital city here. In the previous elections we've covered, we've seen a rescheduling of these elections. The major problem we've seen in those days was whether there's adequate publicity. Because, look, we can't run away from the fact that how many number of policemen and women do we have in this country? We are 200 million people. By the United Nations standard, how many do we need per 100, for example? And look at how, inadequate men and women of, the Nigerian police and other security agencies we have, policing us. For me, I believe there's adequate reason when it borders on insecurity. You can't, these areas we're talking about are the areas that bandits have taken over. So you're not dealing with, common criminals. You're not dealing with hoodlums. You're dealing with people who like daredevil criminals. And for that reason, the best option will be push it within what the law permits, within the period that the law permits for a scheduled election, and get all of the enforcement that you need.
I think I was actually going to agree on that, because if it's been rescheduled, it means every other officials, every other personnel will be refocused just within that angle. And if you ask me, it's going to enhance the security. Then you don't have to be dealing with Duse, Abaji anymore. You're done with that. So the security personnel who were in Duse should be added there. Those in Abaji will be taken there. I think it will be more secure rather than talking about the integrity.
Because from an instance, you cannot say all of these areas that INEC is trying to conduct elections. We must commend INEC. We must even commend the staff. Because, Doc, I know that if I ask you to go to the axis now.
Some coppers made a complaint yesterday. I read the complaint that they were trained to handle some of the polling units' job in a place like Bauchi. But a day before the election, 23rd, most of them were said, they told them not to bother coming after the training, and they had to employ local staff. They have localized the employment process, and INEC has done well in that area. The reason why they did that is some of these people who are visitors, some of the coppers, the NYSC staff, and the rest of them, most of them are afraid of going to certain polling units locations where banditry is actually very, very high or prone. So that localization of employment is also very, very recommendable. My suggestion is that if, for example, there are some polling units that have moved to the Abiva, there should be second plan, a plan before the scheduling. What I'm trying to argue or suggest is that there should be a way whereby we try as much as possible to get people to vote today, because most rescheduled elections always doesn't turn out the way we want it to turn out.
But looking at the time, this should be around 5 or thereabouts.
Like I said earlier, remember INEC has made a very INEC tried, but I'm looking at the issue that most places they started late. And I know you defended them by you talked about the issue of transportation. Some people can be given the job to come and pick INEC staff so our time. The Nigerian factor, like you just said. But the issue is we should give excuse.
You have to understand that whatever you're doing, your staff, will have to come from within Nigerians. We're expecting any moment from now. Sorry about that. We're expecting that any moment from now. Topsy Gimba, who is at the International Conference Center, will brief us as regards what's happening at the International Conference Center. So if Topsy is ready at the International Conference Center before we return to to focus again on some of these issues in bandit area. Topsy, if you're there, let us in.
Hello, Topsy.
So Topsy is not ready. We expect, a live transmission of the events at the International Conference Center.
And I'm actually expecting that he should bring an update concerning the issue, what exactly INEC has done concerning these areas.
Of course, the response should be quite immediate.
I don't see again how this response when it has to do with insecurity on a day like this. Every staff of INEC is running against time. every staff of INEC. I have the privilege of being part of this electoral process, working in this capacity from 1999. I'm becoming an ancestor.
Definitely.
And all right, and I tell you, when people are running against time, for you to deploy, to get new people, it's a big dream. All right, so let's see what's happening. We're going to be joining the National Network Service. We're going to be joining the network service of the NTA as we view the events unfolding at the International Conference Center.